Should we just keep tabling? She shouldn't be too much longer, right?
They were going to load up the Zoom meeting here.
Yeah, they're working on that.
Is it not working?
So we are
going live right now.
okay.
Yeah, you can start. You are actually live right now.
Okay.
I see people, and I'm.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's call the meeting to order. Roll call. Paul is missing. Could I get approval of the agenda that was submitted? Okay. And Tim is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Then I'd like approval of the minutes that were submitted for last meeting. Joanne, is there a second? Milt, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. There is no public comment person here to make public comment, so we will move on to the unit manager report. Corinne?
Is it on? Then hit your little person button. And then push down on your mic if it's not.
Okay, there we go. All right. I'm not going to do a whole lot of time on my numbers this month. I mean, our referrals are up. You can see that our contacts are what they are. Foster home contacts go up because we're doing more placements. We are managing and hired a new staff person. She started on 5/10. I'm super excited about her. She is very independent, responsible, intelligent, and has already been providing a decent amount of support for our staff. Some of you may have met her before. She was the student I think I've shared with you that worked with us for a year and then transitioned to new employment with us. So she kind of knows the ropes, knows what we do, and has been able to step in very nicely and figure out what it is that we want her to do sometimes without even being asked. So that's pretty fantastic. So if there's no questions about numbers, I'll just get into what I kind of intended to talk a little bit about today and report a little bit about today, which is what we, I guess in some way, shape or form are getting for some of the placements that we've been doing. Okay, if we're okay, I'll just go right into that. So I wasn't really sure what to talk about. I'm not much for describing a program. Some days I'm not always exactly sure that what it is that we do fits nicely into a program or into a templated description. After 18 years, I'm not even sure on every day that I know exactly what it is that we do, other than fill those gaps and do the thing that needs to be done when you get to the office that day. But as our placements have increased and, we talk a lot about the cost, we talk more about the costs of doing that type of human services business. I thought I'd kind of get into a little bit of info and some stories maybe about what we get for that investment, so to speak. I don't necessarily like to talk about what we do in terms like that, but I think in this capacity, sometimes it makes some sense. So first and foremost, you get obviously food, shelter, care, an adult or two to provide care for children that have safety or community safety needs that require, our attention or require placement. You get a worker who is required to do the business of placing kids. So a couple of years ago, we had the Secretary of Human, I don't recall exactly which secretary it was, that came in to talk with us about, what it is that we need and what it is that we do. And I had kind of shared with her something I had printed off and put together, which is, this is really just a visual aid, a folder of what's required of a worker in the first 30 to 60 days. Many of these things in this thick packet are required in, honestly, the first 48 hours of a placement. So you can imagine if you place more than one child, which we often do, there's 5 of these, 4 of these, 7 of these, whatever it may be, that are required of a worker. So what you get is the time and effort that worker will put into completing these things on behalf of a child. The things that are in here are are all kinds of things from court forms that are required to, daycare packets, because kids have to be cared for during the day, mental health counseling. There's waiver forms in here. There's all kinds of things that honestly are required of all three of our units so that we can work nicely together to make sure that we've got kids' needs met. So there's that. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I broke it down to there's about 20 forms required in the first 48 hours, 30 or so required by day 60. I mean, it's a decent amount of manpower that you're getting, but in the time that those things are being accomplished, there's also what I like to refer to, and what I'll pull from Bob Mattias. Julie might remember this, that he always said, kids are not, it's not like that one big thing that kids really get you with. It's the 1,000 little things, whether it's financially or emotionally or the tasks that are required. Kids they have a lot of needs. And really, I think the bulk of parenting comes in with that 1,000 little things that are required. So you get a worker that's developing a team to accomplish those 1,000 little things for a kid, because oftentimes parents are not able to successfully do those, which is why they're in placement. So, we step in and say that we're going to parent in some way, shape, or form, and we're going to develop that team. So those are also things that are required. I've been asked a lot of times by, the several directors we've had and many people in your roles, what of those 1,000 things are required? I don't know that I can answer for you. I'm probably not the person to answer for you what of the 1,000 things in raising a child are required, because I think it differs from child to child. And obviously we do them. So I think all of them are required. I think there's a basic standard that all kids should have access to. And I also think that with creativity, hard work, intelligence, the dedication of our staff in all three units, generally we can accomplish the 1,000 little things of raising a child with, like I said, creativity, efficiency, and do it in a financially responsible way. So I don't know if I can ever pick out for you, right? Does a kid need that third pair of glasses when MA only covers 2? No, they're not going to die without having their glasses. But yeah, I think we need to go get them, and we need to set about the business of taking care of that stuff for kids. Do they need to go to the allergist because they're uncomfortable? No, I guess they're probably not going to die from that, but would you take your kid? Of course you would. So I think that's the kind of stuff that we do our best to make sure we have done for children. That's what you get for that investment. And I don't know if I can extract anymore what is or is not required. But the other thing that kind of thinking about what I was going to say to you guys brought me to was we started in, I want to say 2010-ish. When we started doing our own adoptions and we started moving into the guardianship world and doing some other things for permanence for kids, we started keeping boxes of files on children that are required to be kept because they have, like, in theory, they could have vital record information, or we've changed their names, or we've done adoptions, and there's birth information, things of that nature that I was told once had to be kept for the entire life of the child. So there are these boxes in our file room that say, do not destroy. These are important records that can't ever be destroyed. So what they are, to me, is indicative of the children that we've provided a level of permanence for, the kids who did not go home in the traditional fashion, but they've been given a level of permanence. That is also what we're trying to achieve when we invest in placement type activities. We're trying to achieve permanence, whether it's home with a parent and we've supported that parent in a way that allows reunification, or whether it's in an alternative form of permanence. So those 40 boxes are indicative of our alternative form of permanence. So there's names on the outside of them, and I was just looking through them and wanting to tell you all some of the successes or some of the things that our kids have been able to accomplish, or our families have been able to accomplish with the investment, in part because of the investment of placement. So, I think we've got younger kids who are typical, they're spoiled, they're sassy, right? That's, I think, what we want for many kids. But we've got kids who can function and they fit in behaviorally to the point that we get to see their pictures on Facebook, right? Their little dance recitals or the little, Boy Scout, Girl Scout cleanup at the park, right? They're doing well enough behaviorally to just fit in with their peers and not have those other issues that they experienced when they came to us. We've got babies who are growing up now where they don't know who their social worker was, right? Myself or my staff will walk into their house, and there was a day where we'd walk in and they would be like, "Ooh, what's going to happen?" Right? Is today going to be a happy day, or is she going to do something that makes my life harder today? Right? We get to a point when I look at those boxes, I see those kids, I know that I can walk into their homes for other reasons. And if they're really little, they don't even remember that we existed, which seems weird to be excited about. But for a social worker, that's a moment where you're like, okay, we did something there, right? Those memories are not just always stuck for them in the front of their brain. They're locked away somewhere. We've got kids who have unfortunately lost parents to tragic scenarios like death or something of that nature, who've built parental structures with relatives or other folks to the point where they can succeed, they can have some peace, some calm, some stability, which is hard to achieve when you've experienced that level of trauma. We've got kids who get to live legally with their grandparents, aunts, uncles, step-parents who raised them and made them important before they were required to do so. So there's a lot of kids in that, in those boxes who they came to us where they were living with somebody, but that wasn't necessarily a legal arrangement. And we were able to make that make sense for them. Kids with all kinds of behavioral, developmental needs, kids who are typical. They had people in their life who made them important and cared for them, but we needed to legalize that and give them some permanence going forward. We've got older kids who are high school and college graduates. We've got a kiddo graduating this year who, 4 years ago when we started, I was thinking this morning about, we had many goals since we started with this young person, but the actual original goal was to get through school. And I think she's going to do that this year. So that, again, is I think a huge accomplishment. We've got kids attending college, kids who are graduating from college, some, honestly, that didn't appear to have the behavioral or the cognitive capacity when we started with them. And through support and developing, all kinds of systems and structures around them, turns out that those things were absolutely attainable for those children, and they did attain them. Kids who are successfully and gainfully employed, participating in successful relationships, that's sometimes the thing that I worry about the most with our kids, and we've got kids who are doing that well, kids who drive. Driving is another thing. I don't know if that's required. Some days I think, good Lord, maybe it is not what we should do. But which one of us couldn't drive at the age of 18 and meet our needs through being able to drive a vehicle at 18? It's not required. It's something that we've battled with in foster care for a number of years about whether we could or should do that for children. But honestly, who can achieve an adult type existence without having that basic need met? So those things happen as well. We've got kids who have no law violations, kids who are academically successful to the point that they've been published, they've earned scholarships, they've been honored in all kinds of ways for their academic and community achievements. We've got kids living in homes with caregivers that they are truly connected to when their earliest intervention discussions contained words like institutions. We've got kids living in homes successfully that we explored institutions for, and institutions would not serve because of the level of behavioral need. And somehow, they're doing well. And again, not experiencing the trauma that comes with placement or some of the things that they went through before that. We've got kids employed in our community as mentors. Again, like I said, kids who are college bound, successfully attending, kids who understand that the connection between parental points of reference and somebody in your life that will do those 1,000 things for you. They understand it to the point where when they have their own children, I think they're doing well enough to where I truly believe we're not going to have to raise their own children or raise their children. I can't always say that those situations are phenomenal. They don't have the best of accommodations. They're not always, perfect, but I do think that many of those boxes I looked at, we have successfully shown those children what it is to have a point of reference as a parent who's going to do those things, those little things and the big things, so that they don't have the issues, some of the issues that their parents had with that exact circumstance. We have kids who know how to communicate, ask for help in ways that don't destroy their life and get them in trouble. Oftentimes our youth justice kiddos, what they're doing is asking for some sort of help we don't understand, and they are learning, kids in those boxes are learning and have learned how to ask for help in a way that doesn't create problems for them. I think, honestly, one of the most important things we get is we've got a lot of parents and biological families that are also in those boxes who have worked with us, trusted the supports and the teams that we have built around their children to the point where they can say, this isn't something that I can do for my child, but I trust these other people to do it. And that is, I think, a huge thing that results in a kid getting the best of both worlds, which means they get both of their families. Again, this is the same, I think, these 40 kids, these 40 boxes are the kids who maybe haven't gone home in the traditional way, but I also think that there are so many that do go home. And again, like I said at the beginning, our original goal is to support their parents in a way that allows them to do that. So I think there are probably, I don't have a good number for you, but there's a ton more that have those have had parents supported to the point where they can do those 1,000 little things as well. So again, in our business, I've been asked a million times to kind of quantify success. And I don't know if I can do that for you nicely with numbers. My boxes are probably the best success I've had at quantifying some of those success stories, or what it is that we get, or how we are being successful. But again, I think, our type of success is slow. It happens in small moments over time. You have to kind of piece it together. But I do think that there's a lot of positivity that has come from placement in a way, that can be seen sometimes and sometimes can't be. I think we focus a lot on what the negatives are of placement these days, but I also think there's a positive side to that. And there is something that, is coming with that investment. I think those kids in those boxes, they touch other people in a positive way, and you start to see an exponential effect. So 40 maybe seems like a big number for a county that doesn't place a lot of kids. Maybe it seems like a small number. I don't know how you all look at that. But I think that as you start to look at the impact those kids can have on their own children and other folks, it starts to become exponential and probably pretty impressive. So again, I've been asked to answer how we know we're successful. I've been asked to answer, what it is that we do and what it is that's required. And I guess I'll kind of put that back onto you guys sometimes, because I honestly think that's a question that every board and every person who represents our community has to answer. So that's my preachy, rambling shtick. If there are questions, certainly ask them, but if not, I'll turn it over to Brian so we can get back to numbers.
Thank you. Okay, Brian, you're up.
Good morning. I'll briefly go over the financial reports that were included in your packet. The reports are for April, the financials are for March. Looking at the billing report through April, we billed 179,000. Year to date, we're at 771. Gives us an average of about 193. If we look for year end, we're going to be coming somewhere in the 2.3 million for billing. And that could equate into about 1.5 million in actual revenue coming in. A little bit higher than last year if we keep tracking this way. So that's a good thing. State aid report. Again, we've been receiving almost 100% of what we've filed so far. We will start seeing our claims being paid at less as we start hitting state profile limits for the first half of the year. As you can see, like in the Sparks line, we're down about 75% of what we submitted. So, but then we'll get that caught up again once we hit the new state budget in July. The funding starts coming back to us again. And we are currently working on April's claims to be submitted. The contract status report, this is through April. The expenses in April are mainly March's activity. We have a couple things to look at as far as adjusting some contracts, one being with our psychiatrist, Dr. Olivieri, that I believe is a 6 or it's not a whole annual contract, so that will be renewed shortly to get, so that will be added on and that will be taken care of there. We do have some additional contracts that will need to be approved after we go through the financials. And looking at vendor payments, we averaged 202, or we had 202,000 for the month. Some of the notable expenses or payments in there, we did pay locum tenens, which is our psychiatrist for Dr. Olivieri, 2 months worth of bills. So it's 6,700. That was March and April's invoices. And we paid Trempolo $10,400 for an inpatient stay for the month. And the credit card statements for April are also included with our package. Looking at the financial numbers for the month of March, we are 3 months into the year, or 25%. So 25% is kind of our goal that we look at for where we need to be for revenues and expenses. Looking at admin, economic support, and children and families, we're pretty much hitting those marks or within close range of them. When we get down to the behavior health, though, we will see that in the crisis section, we're at 164% over the 25%, which is basically because of the Winnebago charges. Our year-to-date expenses are 196 compared to a whole year budget of 119. So we've already exceeded our budget by 77,000. Of the 196, about 163 has been Winnebago so far, and 23,000 for other placements such as Bell and Willow Creek or Trempolo. So we are high in that area, but when we come down to the bottom of the behavior health, we're back in line, mainly because we have underspent in some other areas, mainly in the CCS area. We've got $120,000 variance there that we're under so that kind of saves us for now. We're still having more people in long-term or inpatient stays, so hoping to see that number start coming down sooner than later. Getting into family and community again, their numbers pretty much fall in line to where we want to be. Looking at the totals for the bottom through March at 25%, our revenues are at 23.8%, and our expenses are at 20.9. So we are in range of where we need to be there. If we have a bottom line of 1,007,000 to the positive, if everything were to stop as of March. So overall, we're watching our expenses and trying to get as much revenues in as we can. So, any questions on the financial reports?
Thank you. Then we'll move on to approval of provider contracts. Okay, do you have some contact?
They should be in there. Let me-
There should have been a list in the package of,
Okay. Do you want to discuss that with the group, or do you just want a
no, I
motion to
just,
approve them?
normally, I think Scott was always doing a roll call
Yeah.
vote or
Yeah.
just a vote on for approval on those.
Okay, Doak made a motion. Is there a second to approve the contracts? Tim, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, they are approved. And we'll move on to the director update.
Thank you. This is my first meeting, I guess, as director. So thank you. It's been almost a month now. I think the board confirmed me April 27th. So here we are, May 20th. We're almost at a month. So far, so good. I wanted to circle back to Corinne's report. So my plan is that instead of bringing the 3 unit managers, the program managers each month, I would sort of rotate through them so that they'll have an opportunity to explain what's going on in their program each month. So this month it was children and families. Also, Melissa's out today on birthday, and Sue's on vacation visiting her son in North Carolina. So my plan with the program reports is to sort of rotate through them to give them opportunity to highlight what's going on in their program area. We did include some of the information on their units in your packet, so you can take a look at that. But thank you for that report today, Corinne. Very good. Okay, so today I did pass out an organizational chart to you. I am an attorney. I am not a graphic artist, so this is about the best I can do for you. But this is sort of where I started. I knew many of these folks, but I didn't know them all. So I figured I'd put that out before you. Perhaps you've seen something like this before, but I think it's sort of handy to, lay it out for you so you can kind of see. Obviously, you have the financial unit, which is Brian and his folks. He also takes care of the economic support folks as well. The children and families unit, which Corinne talked about, I would note that Brandy did start May 10th. And then we have that one position there on the bottom, the children and families, that is still vacant. The board did approve filling that position. We just have not filled that yet. We are actively thinking about that. I will talk to Corinne as we go forward about that position. There's a family and communities unit. That's Melissa's unit. And you can see there about 2/3 of the way down, there's a contract position, Shannon Haggerty. She started yesterday. She is a contract employee through Helping Hands. And also the other contract positions there are Lynn and Lori Bushy. Lynn obviously is seated up here, and Lori does the transportation program. I tried to set apart the contract positions in the gray and red. And then you go over the behavioral health, you can see that unit as well. You can see it's very heavy in the contract positions. Notably, though, there are a lot of professionals like psychiatrists. We have 2 of them, the psychologist, therapist, and then we have a couple of, 3 social worker, case manager types. One is currently vacant. Right about the time I started, there was a contract employee. For whatever reason, it didn't work out, and she was asked to leave. So we are actually recruiting that spot right now. We're going to be working with Helping Hands to fill that here. I think next week there's some interviews scheduled. I wanted to show you that too, because remember last year's budget, there was some question about whether we should add some of these employees as full-time county employees. And I think that's going to, at least I'm going to ask for it again this year. But where I'm going to focus is there's the 4 positions, excuse me. In Melissa's unit, the Shannon Haggerty position, she is a contract CLTS CST case manager. And then over in the behavioral health, we have the Brianna Geyer position and a Lalazarn position and the vacant position. That's 4 positions. Those are case managers. And I think in terms of making employees, I think those would be my priorities. Lori is part-time, and Lynn is a clerical assistant, and those we'll have to address as we go forward. But the 4 that I've highlighted are the positions I'm eager to see as county employees. Those other professional types, I think those are appropriate positions to contract out. They're professionals. Like Dr. Ice comes 1 day a week. I think Dr. Lorenzo comes once a month. Is that right, Brian? I would point out our psychologist and therapist, Ken Downing and Pam Fox. They're a married couple. They do wonderful work for us. They're strictly contract. In fact, they have a system where basically, in lawyer speak, they eat what they kill. If they bill an hour, they charge us an hour. So it works out very well for us and for them. So those are the 4 positions I would be targeting in a budget request. But we will discuss that as we go forward. One other thing, as long as we're on the budget a little bit, that by law, we have to have some kind of public participation in the annual human services budget creation. So next month, for June, we'll have to have a public hearing. Very often, I suspect there won't be much public engagement. Maybe 1 or 2 people will show up, or maybe you'll get a letter or 2. But we do have to do that in June because as of July 1st, we have to submit a report to the state saying what we did in terms of public participation for the creation of the budget. It's also a sort of a cue to start thinking about the 2022 budget. And like I said, one of the things I'm going to ask for is that these 4 positions be created into county employment. The other thing I'm working on as a prelude is we have 4 unit managers that I think are doing great work. In the last year, they've been rudderless. We've had sort of, Scott was the interim director. But I think they did a lot of great things over the last year or so and got us in a good position. And I'm going to ask for some wage adjustments for our management group, just as a heads up. And that's what I'm going to be asking for. I started doing the work and comparing them to, the counties in our area. As you can imagine, they're low. But I'm just going to tell you that I'm going to ask for that in this year's budget. And hopefully it will receive your warm and thoughtful consideration. They've earned it, but I'll present that information to you, and hopefully that's something that you will consider. Okay, so I'll try to keep this as short as possible. I'll be mindful of your time. So what I've done, and I'm approaching this position more of a manager type. We have experts in the program fields. Obviously, we talk about program issues as they come up, but my role is try to administrative or to manage the department. We do have weekly management meetings with myself and the management team. We go over what's going on in the department, and then we implement whatever course of action we're going to take at those meetings. The managers typically implement those things. So those have gone very well. Less in those management meetings, I think in the past, they were more case and program based, and we do some of that, but it's more management administrative based. So what's going on in the department, what's going on personnel wise, what are the issues going on in the department, things like that. As I indicated, some personnel matters. Brandy Lippold started in CPS May 10th. Sarah Trepez, she moved from being a contract employee to a county employee. That happened in the last few weeks. Shannon Haggerty started yesterday. She is the CCS CLTS case manager. She was, when Sarah moved from contract employee to county employee, Shannon Haggerty filled that contract spot. As indicated, this Emma, she left us, so that created the vacancy, and we have an interview scheduled for, I believe, next week. We have had 2 babies in the last month or so. So we have 2, in fact, one was born very recently, maybe a couple days ago. 2 healthy babies and happy moms. So we have 2 individuals on a maternity leave. And in fact, we had another employee announce she's pregnant and having a baby in November. So we're happy to see those babies. But that is creating some short staffing, particularly in the behavioral health unit, but everybody's picking up and we should be okay. Some special projects. So as we work on all the other things we need to work on, from time to time, I want to take on a special project. The special project we're working on now is we're trying to get the building cleaned up. It seems like a small thing, but that building down there is now 10 years old. It was, the plaque on the wall says 2011. And as you can imagine, in 10 years time, stuff is piling up and we're trying to get her cleaned out. Corinne mentioned those 40 boxes. We have a file room full with more than just 40 boxes. So we're going to try to get that cleaned up and just generally get the place cleaned up. We've had a couple office shuffles. I've picked my office out. So that resulted in a few office moves. So that's a special project we're working on right now. But as we go forward as a department, we will develop these special projects like this and we'll work on those. Financial and budget, we heard the report from Brian. The two areas that I'm paying close attention to are this crisis situation. We've had just a number of inpatient hospitalizations. Those cost about $1,800 a day. So very often, like on the corporation counsel side, I see the mental health commitment. Someone is detained, they take them to the hospital, that results in a court case. Typically, we have about 35, 38 a year of those. Right now, my last one was 19. So in May, we already had 19. So we're trending higher than 35. It's probably into the 40s. But over and above that, we have our existing client base that might be on some kind of order already. That's creating some of these longer term. That one at Trempealeau, she's already on an order. And that creates these longer stays. So I don't know what happened. Something broke loose about December and it's continued into the spring where we just seen an uptick in crisis. We've also seen it in the children and families unit with the placements. I think perhaps maybe it's a function of we were so shut down for a long time and then, you know, things just kind of burst at the seams. That's my best explanation. But whatever the reason is, we've had an explosion of crises. And we've had a small explosion in placements. Though the placements, we had one family with 7 children. That's a big deal. So that I'm watching the crisis budget, and we're also watching the out-of-home placements. Though I think there's room in the budget for those. So we're keeping an eye on that. We had a Pontiac G6. We're selling that. As I indicated, it's time to start thinking about next year's budget. So I told staff to start looking at that. If there's anything we need, you know, maybe start putting together some lists. Not that we're going to get everything, but at least start thinking about it. I think that's about all I have for this month. So like I said, so far so good. I'm happy. I feel like the team's working pretty cohesively. Perhaps it's a bit of a honeymoon period and they'll get sick of my act soon enough, but I'm happy. We haven't done anything, I guess, to rub it in the wrong way yet. But I'm sure as we go forward, we're going to look at some areas and maybe want to make some changes. And then I guess that's where the rubber will meet the road. But that's to come. And that's my report.
Anybody have any questions for him? Yes.
So when you're talking about in the next budget, asking for more permanent positions,
Right.
When we talked this last, I guess I want to remind you that when it failed last time, there was, why weren't they allowed? And I think one of the reasons is we don't do a good job of justifying. You described all the extra work that happens when you lose people because they're not permanent positions, but I hope at least this time we'll put together some kind of justification for all the lost work time when you have to bring somebody new on. Because I think that'll go a long way to convince people that the extra cost for the benefits and everything that you incur when you bring somebody on full-time is worth it to the county.
And thank you for that.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, then we'll move on to our next meeting, which is going to be the June 17th. But I want to bring up the possibility of changing times. I've always said at 8 o'clock because I'm a morning person, but we have one person that has not been able to attend the meetings because he can't get here until at least 10. What is the general feeling as to the time of the meeting? 8 o'clock is fine. You know, I always just felt it got it done so that people can get on with the rest of their day instead of being in the middle. So it's okay to leave it at the 8? Okay. Okay, then public hearing, are we going to do that at a separate time?
No, I think we just start the meeting with the public hearing. I'm pretty confident it'll be a formality, and then within 5 or 10 minutes, you'll be on with your meeting.
Okay.
We have public hearings at the county level, and it's nothing more than a
The
formality.
last couple I went to, there was no one that showed up at any of the public hearings that I went to, so. Okay, is there anything else to come before the committee? Then I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Did you pick a date for the meeting?
What?
A date for the meeting?
The 17th.
Okay, then you're
Yeah.
on minute.
The
I
17th.
just want to float out there before you entertain that motion
Okay.
adjourn that probably we'll think about, at least maybe suggest that July we don't have a meeting unless obviously something comes up. You're the committee, you can schedule a meeting. But I know I'll be gone a week in there somewhere, and we do have some vacations. it's a kind of a common month, you know, with people, summer and so forth, but that's up to you. If you want to have a meeting in July, that's entirely up to you, but that's the month I'm kind of circling. And then we'll come back probably in August and it's gonna be heavy on, we're thinking about budget and we'll be in the process of putting that together. So I'll just float that out there for now.
Okay. Okay. If there's nothing else to come, could I get a motion to adjourn? Milt is, okay, and Doak second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Hearing none. We